Morning. Okay, so if anybody has anything that they would like to go over at the end, you can put it in the chat. But I'm super excited for tonight's Zoom. So you guys saw the post and saw that we've just titled this like getting back on your horse after you feel like you have fallen off. And I'm really excited about this because August, you guys, starts like just a whole new direction. Obviously, we're now in officially the second half of 2019. It's going to be 2020 in literally just less than 5 months, and that's so crazy to think about. The seeds that you plant right now in these like August, September are the seeds that determines the harvest that you reap around Christmas time. It determines what kind of bonuses you're going to be scooping up come conference. The work that you do now like matters more than I could possibly say. And so we just felt like it was really important to talk about, no matter what kind of summer you felt like you had, maybe you were really distracted this summer. Maybe you were, just completely off your A game. Maybe you had a great summer. Maybe you're like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I promoted 3 times this summer. Regardless of what your summer was like, we wanted to just really talk about like refocusing and going forward and having just like the strongest second half of 2019 you could possibly have, setting yourself up to just reap a massive harvest these last few months of the year. But beyond that, like going into 2020, guns blazing, like prepared to like maximize everything that comes out on the table around conference. If you're new and you've never been with us during conference season is just like what we call boom season. It's just like such an incredible time of year for those people who have been working, for the people who've been working and setting the pace. And so that is why it's so important to make sure like whatever has happened in the past, like you let it go and you refocus and you go forward stronger than ever. And so before we really just like jump in, I wanted to share something that I just really felt laid on my heart to share. And it's from a sermon that Cami actually shared in Top Leaders a couple weeks ago that I watched. And in the sermon, it's a story of just like when David's rise to, being anointed as king of Israel, and Saul's decline, and like what led up to Saul, being, essentially off the throne of Israel. And he talked about how, in the sermon, he talked about how no one is exempt from either finishing the assignment that God has called them to do or from disqualifying themselves. And I think that is just such a good word. And it's something that is so applicable to our business. Like you can either finish your assignment and you can keep going. You can get back on your horse when things don't quite go the way that you wish they would, or you can disqualify yourself. And you can say, well, I had a really rough past couple months, so what the heck? Like, what's the point? And I want you to know, like, that is the most important decision you'll ever make in this business, is like how you handle your hardships, how you handle the things that don't quite go the way that you want. Anyone can have a good attitude when they're winning, but how you handle your losing season, or how you handle the waiting period, like that is what really determines like how far you go. I just was guest speaking on a Zoom right before the Zoom, and I shared in there that I thought, just like the biggest thing I could leave them with was that loyalty and longevity. They will make or break your business. Like if you have those two things that you're committed to being loyal, you're committed to being in for the long haul, then you're unstoppable. But the problem is so many people, that's not their mindset. And so going back to this sermon, no one is exempt from either finishing the assignment that God has called them to do or disqualifying themselves. In this sermon, he talked about how whenever, David was anointed king of Israel, and it was brought to Samuel, the prophet's attention that Saul would no longer be king, and that David would be, the new king of Israel. Samuel was just distraught. He was crying and crying, and he was begging and pleading with God for Saul. And God said something in the Bible to Samuel that was just just such a defining moment that I think not a lot of people, when they read the story, even pick up on. But this was the whole point of the sermon. God said to Samuel, stop crying over what I'm done with. And he was telling Samuel, like all the tears he was going to shed over Saul were completely pointless, because he was doing a new thing. He had already anointed David. And I want to share with you guys, like sitting and being, beating yourself up over like what didn't go right the past couple months, beating yourself up over, what, you feel like you could have done better, you should have done better. That's not going to do anything. What we need to be doing is looking ahead of like what God has for us. And God has so many things for us in the future, but if we are so stuck on like what didn't go right before, then we miss that. And one thing that I, have just come to realize in the business is for everything that he takes away, he has something so much better. And anytime we can pick ourselves off the floor whenever we, did drop the ball or we did have a rough couple months, that's when we really set ourselves up for him to bless like never before. But our attitude determines everything. Our attitude when we're losing is so much more important than our attitude when we're winning. And so ask yourself, like, what kind of summer did I have? What could I have done different? What should I have done different? And then instead of getting hung up on that, commit to doing those things right now. Commit to doing those things better now. Committing to having a better August than you had, July. Commit to ending 2019 in a better way than you started. And so just some practical tips like going forward from that is getting organized, getting a good system. For those of you that have read Atomic Habits, you know where this is coming from, but I love so much what he says in that book. He says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And so often the problem is that, like, yes, we have goals. We would love to go diamond. We would love to go triple diamond. We'd love to go ambassador diamond, but we don't have the systems in place to do that. So we have these goals, but they're just, we're hanging on to them with like a hope, a wish, and a prayer. Like, we don't have anything set in place to actually make those happen. And so going forward, to end the year strong, what I would like to encourage all of you guys to do is like write down a true 6 list that's going to be completely non-negotiable to you, and commit that those things are going to be just as important to you as brushing your teeth, as feeding your children, as showering. And yes, I just said feeding your children, because here's the thing, you guys, those of you that have regular 9-to-5 jobs, you know that if there are certain things, if you don't do at your job, you'll get fired, right? Like, there's certain things, if you show up to work and you don't do, you know you're going to get fired, and then you don't have that job anymore. You don't have that paycheck coming in, and then you can't feed your family. But for whatever reason, we don't always like translate that over onto our business. Like, we don't have anyone actually making us do what we need to do. We don't have anyone that's actually going to fire us. We could be a distributor and do nothing for the rest of our life. And so it's really easy on the bad days or on the hard days or the days that life is throwing a lot at us to not treat our 6 list as like those core things that we have to do no matter what, or we would get fired, because no one's standing over us that's going to actually fire us. But I want to encourage you, like, make that shift in your mind that those things are truly non-negotiable, and realize that, like, I don't get a paycheck with this business, or I don't get a paycheck I'm happy with if I don't do these things every day without fail. I love what Kadi Ali says, and if you guys don't know her, she's amazing. She's top 10. She is, I mean, just like a force to be reckoned with. She went ambassador the month before me and is already triple diamond on her 2.0. Like, she's just incredible. But she did a Zoom for another team a couple months ago, or no, excuse me, last month. And she said, I treat my business the same way I treat my children. She was like, I feed my business the same way I feed my children, because my business feeds my children. And she just went on to say, like, she doesn't understand why some people like miss that mark in their mind, that like you have to treat them the same. You're not going to not feed your kid. When your kid's hungry, it doesn't matter if you don't feel good, if you're sick, if you, just had a fight with your husband, whatever the case may be, you had exams at school, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to still sit down and feed your kids. You're not going to be like, sorry, mommy doesn't feel good, go to bed hungry. It's the same thing with your business. If you know that your business can change your life, and you know that your business can literally fund your family's hopes and dreams, then you're going to know that even on the bad days, you still got to feed it. You still got to show up and do the basic things. And so for me, and what I want you guys to like really like just shift your frame of shift your frame of mind on is that's your 6 list. So there are days that we do more than others. Like, we're just going to be real, and I'll admit that. Like, there's days that we do, we get 100 hosts to post up, but that doesn't have to be our everyday, and you don't have to do that every day to be successful. But what you do have to do every day to be successful is like your core things. That's growing your network. That's posting. If you're not posting, you're literally not watering your seeds. There are people that are watching you right now, and every day you don't post, every day that you're not consistent, they wonder if it's a good decision to join you because you're not consistent. I watched Claire, you guys, for 11 whole months. And if she would have not been consistent during that 11 months, I can promise you I probably wouldn't have joined her. I read every single post that she put. Every night when she told her story, I was reading it. And that's what, like, every time she would make a post, that watered that seed. That watered that seed that was inside of me, like, wondering, like, should I join her? Should I join her? Every time I would read it, I would think, okay, I think I should. I think I should. And finally, one day I had read enough posts and I was ready to join. But the thing about it is if you only post your story once a month, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're your own worst enemy. So decide today, like, okay, I'm going to be super consistent with posting. I'm going to be super consistent with growing my network. I'm going to be super consistent with adding to my story. I'm going to be super consistent with engaging. I'm going to have that strong social media presence. People are going to see me on their stuff. And you guys, that can literally just be like 15, 20 minutes a day, liking and commenting. That strengthens that, that position that you have with your audience. Like, you want them to trust you. You want them to like you. People join people they like. People join people they trust. People buy from people they like. They buy from people they trust. And so how you do that is being consistent, by always showing up in their news feeds, by always liking and commenting on their things. But then going beyond that, you know, we talked about adding, it's always getting new people in your network, always getting new people seeing your stuff, because we don't know the life cycle of every seed. Some seeds that we plant are going to sprout tomorrow, but some seeds that we plant are not going to sprout for a year. And so by always adding to your network, you're setting yourself up for success, because you're always going to have all these seeds going out. And if you always have seeds going out, you're always going to have a harvest to reap. But so often that's our problem. That's the missing piece, is that we only have 100 people seeing our stuff. And so we're either going to run out really quick of, you know, people seeing our stuff, or those are just going to happen to be the seeds that are going to take longer. And so we want to make sure we're like setting ourselves up for success in that regard. Okay, so going beyond that, adding to your network, engaging with your network, posting to your story, self-development every single day without fail, you guys. If you guys were on, I think it was the last Zoom that we did, or maybe it was the Diamonds and Above Zoom, I don't even remember now, but I talked about how like the enemy always comes for your head. And so if you are a Ruby, he knows the best way to dismantle your whole team is to come for you, the leader of that Ruby team. If you're a Diamond, he knows the best way to dismantle your whole organization is to come for you. And so you've got to know that like you have to set yourself up for success to stand strong against those attacks. And the moment that you think you don't need self-development, I promise that's the moment that you need it the most. And so commit now, like set a standard for yourself of how much self-development you're going to do. If you haven't been doing any, then don't overwhelm yourself, but set an amount, set a number. For me, I like to finish a book a week, and I like to watch a sermon a day. And so I know that like I'm starting every day with a sermon. That's simple. There's 30-minute sermons on YouTube. But the book a week, what this does for me is if I do have a couple days that I'm kind of slacking on my self-development, I realize come the end of the week, oh, I still have 5 hours left of this audiobook. I better get going. And then I get going and I make up for lost time. And so I'll never sit here and preach to you guys I'm perfect. I listen to like 5 hours of an audiobook a day, because I don't. But by having that standard of a book a week, it keeps me on track one way or the other. So maybe for you, your standard is going to be a book a month. That's fine. Just set a standard, set a goal for yourself. A sermon a day, a book a month, whatever it's going to be. Maybe for you, you're brand new and your standard is going to be a sermon a day to get your mindset right, and then a training every afternoon or every evening or whatever, so you can sharpen your skills. That's fine. It doesn't even have to be a book. It can be a sermon and a training, but like set something for yourself. Because when we have no standards, again, it's really easy when our kids are sick, when life gets crazy, to just let everything fall by the wayside because we don't have anything in place. But we have to have those good, solid systems in place if we're going to reach our goals. And kind of just taking that a little bit further, when I got started, I wanted to share this with you guys. I didn't read a lot of books my first like few months in the business. I think I started in June. I think from June to December, so that second half of the year, which was my first 6 months in the business, I think I read like 3 books. I think it was Rhino Success, You Are a Badass, and Chase the Lion. So I didn't read a whole lot of books that first 6 months, but what I did do was I listened to a training every single day, sometimes like 3 trainings a day. I just literally would put YouTube on my TV, and I would just go to a top leader's YouTube channel, and I would just let it play all throughout the day. My kids did not watch TV in my living room, you guys. I swear to you, that whole first 6 months of my business, if they wanted TV, they had to go to the playroom. But the living room, I just had YouTube on. That way I could be in a good frame of mind. Like if you're momming it all day and your husband's like pulling, late nighters, you don't need to be listening to Peppa the Pig or Dora the Explorer. That's just gonna drive you more crazy. You need to be listening to people who are where you want to be, and you need to be letting them inspire you and them pour into you so you can like continue to go after your goals and create a better life and bring your husband home, or whatever your goals are. Maybe it's not to retire your husband, but whatever things that you want to do, you need to be in a place, a position where you believe they can actually happen. And when we don't have the right things pouring into our mind, it's really easy on the bad days to believe it's not going to happen. And I think like when we look at summertime, a lot of us like can see that was the missing piece. Like we just kind of let our mind just fall away from us. And so remember, like the enemy will always come for your head. His first goal is going to be to distract you. And then once he distracts you, his next goal is going to be to isolate you. And he knows if he can isolate you, he can control you. And here's the reason I'm telling you this. When we know how he works, then we're not naive to his schemes. We see it coming a mile away. But when we don't recognize how he works and how he's going to try to come after us, then we let him come for us, and we don't even realize until it's too late, until we're literally down in the dumps. We've had a rough month or rough 3 months or whatever the case is, and we're like, why is all this happening to me? And we don't even realize like how it has even started happening. And so I'm sharing this with you guys from personal experience because I've been there. Whenever I went triple diamond in the summer of 2017, and things were fine for the first couple months, but then I just kind of dropped the ball on a few small things. It wasn't anything big, but I just let a few of my like really good solid habits kind of fall, and I fell into some not so great habits. And before I realized it, I had lost my rank, and I wasn't maintaining triple, and I was maintaining double, and I was distraught. It felt like a punch in the gut. It was the first time I'd ever lost rank. And if you're on here and you've lost rank before, then I want you to know you're not alone. Like I have felt that feeling before, and I know it doesn't feel good. But what I realized when that happened was like, okay, how can I prevent this? What can I do differently to make it to where I don't ever have to go through this again? And I realized really quickly, like I can't control what anyone's doing but myself. But I can make dang sure that I'm showing up every day, and that these things are so non-negotiable to me. It's not even funny. I can make sure that on my even on my worst days, even when things aren't going well, that I'm still pouring into myself. Because here's the thing, tomorrow's a new day. But if you're not pouring into yourself today, you're not even thinking about how you can make tomorrow better. So literally just saturate your mind with self-development. Just literally set yourself up for success in that regard. If you go to the self-development thread that we have in Fire Tribe, if you just go to Fire Tribe and just click search and type in self-development, it'll come up. It's like a teal turquoise graphic. In the comments, there's a lot of recommendations. I've posted all the books that I've listened to this year. So you have all the recommendations you could possibly need. There's podcast recommendations, YouTube channels. But just go take a look at that if you're needing some direction. Subscribe to a couple YouTube channels of top leaders. Subscribe to a couple pastors like Stephen Furtick, Michael Todd, Dr. Darius Daniels, and just literally every day, just set yourself up for success. Get a book, like just whatever you need to do in that regard, set yourself up. And I do want to say, as far as audiobooks, if you're on a budget, there are so many of them on YouTube for free. So a lot of the ones that I even recommended in the comments, you can find on YouTube for free. So it won't even cost you anything. Your local library has, I think it's called OneDrive. Maybe I'm butchering that. I feel like it's something like that though. And it's an app basically that if you have a library card, you can listen to audiobooks through the library for free from the app. So there's so many ways, you guys, that you can get free self-development. It's just a decision. It's just a choice. But just set yourself up for success. Okay, let's see what else. I feel like we went over the whole 6 list except one thing. Oh, follow-ups. So the last thing on my 6 list is follow up with everyone that I talked to yesterday. And if someone can put these in the comments real quick, just so everyone can write them down. It's adding to Facebook, adding to Instagram, engaging with your network, self-development, posting 3 to 6 times a day, and then posting to your story. And then the last thing that we're about to talk about right now is following up with everyone that you've talked to yesterday. And so you guys know, like we talk a lot about follow-up Friday. Follow-up Friday is huge. That's the day that you just want to go through and just follow up with everyone you've talked to. Fridays, literally team-wide, are the highest enrollment days because everyone's following up. But whenever you have it on your 6 list to follow up with everyone that you talked to the day before, what this does is like you're still going to deal with people before Friday. If the conversation naturally just fell off the day before, you're going to get back on top of that today. So what I mean by that is like, let's say yesterday someone commented on your coffee and greens before and after, and you sent them the info and they asked you a question, you answered the question, and then they just didn't say anything. Okay, today you're going to follow back up. You're just going to say, hey, did you want to go ahead and get started on the fat burning coffee and greens? Super simple, but you're going to check back in. You're not going to leave that hanging until Friday. If it was a potential distributor and they asked you about the business, you voice messaged them info, they listened to it and then just didn't say anything. Today, you're going to check in and you're just going to say, hey girl, what questions did you have for me? That's all I mean by following up with who you talked to yesterday. It's just popping back in those conversations that fell off. If you do that and they still don't say anything, then you're going to add them to your Friday follow-ups. But again, these are just simple things that when we just get in the frame of mind of like, okay, these are what I do every day. This is the things that if I had a 9-to-5 job, if I didn't do these things, I would be fired. When we have that frame of mind, then we start doing them. And consistency, you guys, is the name of the game. When we have these things that we do religiously without fail, that is when we start seeing the magic happen. And you won't see the results necessarily tomorrow from doing the things today. You won't necessarily see them next week. But I can promise you by the end of the month, you're going to be like, man, August was a lot better month than July and June were. And you're going to end 2019 and you're going to be like, man, I cannot even believe everything that I got done these last few months of 2019. I don't know how I missed all this the first half. Like I'm telling you guys, like after I went triple and I lost rank and I got back on track, it took me a while. It took me several months to get triple back, but I started attracting better quality people into my business because I was being relentlessly consistent. I started signing more people than I had ever signed because I was being relentlessly consistent. And so while I was fighting to get my rank back, like my business was thriving and God was like truly blessing my efforts in a way to set us up for a presidential team, to set us up for an ambassador team. And so look at always be looking ahead, always be looking at, okay, yes, maybe this past month wasn't exactly how I would have liked it to have gone, but what can I do now that's going to create a better tomorrow? And just remembering that today matters. The things we do today, even when we don't feel like it, are what literally set us up to have the success that we want tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So before we go any further, does anybody have any questions? Is there anything that maybe you feel like was a struggle for you this summer? Maybe something that you feel like has just been a challenge to make a habit. Maybe it's a mindset issue, just anything at all that you just want some practical tips on. If you do, put them in the comments or in the chat, and then we'll go over that. I just want to make sure we're covering everything. Chances are if you feel like you had something you were struggling with, someone else has that same struggle. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid to bring something up. But that's the main things that I wanted to go over, is just leaving behind the past, because we can't go back there. We don't live there. We live in the present and we live for the future. But when we stay, just wallowing in guilt and in shame over the past and what we feel like we could have done better, that keeps us in that place. And that's a place that we were never meant to stay. Okay, so Maya said in the comments, I struggle with following up. I would say the best thing, Maya, is number one, write down your 6 list that you're going to do non-negotiably. And obviously that's going to be one of those things. And so retraining your brain that this is what I do every day. I follow up with who I talked to yesterday. But going beyond that, staying organized is just so huge. If you have, whether you're brand new or whether you've been in the business for a while, if you are not yet organized, just decide today you're going to get organized. What I do is anyone that reaches out to me about the business or products, I write their name down the end of every night. So I just before I go to bed every night, I go and I get my iPad Pro. I have just a document in there that I write on with my Apple Pencil. Before I was digital, I just did this on a pen and paper. So you don't need anything fancy to do this. But I just write down everyone that I talk to. And I have a list of potential customers and I have a list of potential distributors. And by everyone's name going on the list, that ensures that no one falls through the cracks. So that ensures that today, when I'm looking at my paper and I'm like, okay, I got to follow up with whoever I talked to yesterday, I have the names right there and I can follow up. But again, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So if we don't have any systems in place, it's really hard to get in a good groove when we just feel like our life is chaotic. So, okay, Alicia said, messaging and following up is my biggest weakness. Everything else has become habit. I'm just working on making it a habit. I finally got all my PTs and PLCs organized. Yay, that's so awesome. Okay, so we just covered following up. By messaging, I'm not sure if you mean reaching out or host to post. For host to post, I know that if you don't get a lot of comments on your initial host to post giveaway that you make, your next step is going to be to message people to ask them to host to post for you. Again, it goes to setting a standard. Set a standard for yourself. How many people am I going to ask to host a post for me every day? Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 50. The number doesn't matter so much as it is that you're committed to the number and you have a number. Because if you're just kind of just messaging however many you feel that day, then you can see where that's a bad idea, because the second life gets in the way, you're not going to message anybody. So it's better that you have a number in your head of like, say 15, like every day I message 15 people and ask them to host a post for me. Then like one day go hard and message 100, but then not message anyone for the next 3 weeks. You see what I'm saying? So just set that standard. That's my biggest tip for that. Heather said, when real life happens, like crazy hard things, how do you move past it when you feel like self-development isn't enough? Okay, so this is a question that I get a lot, especially on coaching calls. And what I will say is I think that it's just a decision, and it's a decision that we literally don't feel like making, and it's not easy at all, but we have to make it. We just have to literally, like, this is when self-discipline comes into play so huge. We have to tell ourselves like, okay, I know I don't feel like it, but I'm going to put on all the self-development, and I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to go through the motions and do what I need to do until I start feeling like it. I can tell you, like, I've gone through some pretty hard stuff in this business, some really personal stuff. And there's days when I would have loved nothing more than to just bury my head in the sand and pretend that none of it was happening. But instead, what I did was I just stood up and I'm like, okay, I'm like, my team needs me. My kids need me. Like, I have to make this work. I have to show up. I've got to set an example. I'm just going to do it. And like literally every fiber inside of me is like, I don't want to do this. I just want to literally go curl on a ball, but I just do it anyways. And I'm not going to lie and say like, oh, I start doing it and everything feels great. No, it still doesn't feel great, but I keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then what I see happening from that point is that then I start getting some wins. And here's the thing, when we start getting some small wins under our belt after a rough patch, after life has thrown some really crappy stuff at us, we start feeling that momentum again. We start feeling like, okay, I can do this. This isn't as bad as I think. Like, all hope is not lost. Yes, these things that are happening are so not good, but there's still so much more for me. But we don't see that until we force ourselves to do what we need to do, and we do them and we start getting those wins. I can tell you right now that there was something super personal that happened to me like last fall. And I did not, it's probably the only time in my business I really didn't want to work my business, but I did it anyways. This is before I went pres. And literally that next couple of weeks, I signed like, I think like 8 or 9 distributors back to back. And I was like, okay, obviously God sees something in me that I don't feel about myself right now, because he's sending me people to train and to mentor. And so I just poured myself into those new people. I just literally was like, okay, they need me. I've got to like ignore my feelings and just go for it. A book I'm listening to right now, I'm actually at the tail end of it, like the last hour, but it's called Living Beyond Your Feelings. It's so good. It's by Joyce Meyer, and it's basically, she just talks a lot about how our feelings deceive us. Our emotions aren't actually reality. They're just how we feel in the moment. And if we can learn to not listen to them and to ignore them and to just do what we need to do even when we don't feel like it, like we gain that power and that control over them. And that's when we really can live our life without them getting in the way. So I highly recommend that. It's kind of like I don't enjoy the audio. It's not read by her, it's read by someone else. So I'm not gonna lie, like if you need someone exciting to listen to, it's not an exciting audio voice, but it's a really good book. The content's really good. Okay, so Michelle said, what about when it seems like you can't ever do a system long enough to see if it actually works? I seriously struggle with my self-discipline. So I think this kind of just comes down to what I was just answering about Heather's question. Like, we have to just make ourselves do it. We've got to remember, like, we are in control, and we've got to truly view it as like feeding our children. Like, we're never going to not feed our kids because we don't feel like it. So the reason that we don't stick with our business long enough is because we're not viewing it as high of a priority as we should. And even if we think it's a high priority to us, it's obviously not if we don't stick with it. It's just plain and simple. That's the facts. And so when we can view it as just as important as showering, just as important as feeding our children, just as important as, whatever, then we can start making it a commitment and being self-disciplined, because in our head, it's like there's no other option. Like, that's what we have to do. And I think so often when we feel like self-discipline's a problem for us, like it's something that's just a challenge, that usually is the missing piece, is we're not actually viewing this as the priority that we should, even if we don't realize that. Like, that's the underlying issue. Okay, let's see. So there was a private question that came through to me that said, I just began, and tomorrow I'm having a sit down with my upline who got me involved, but I feel like I have no clue what I'm doing. Is this normal? So I just want to say, yes, it's normal. When we get started, it can often be information overload. You're doing the right thing by sitting down with your upline, and just remember that no one knows everything when they get started. This is a business that you're learning every single day. You're never going to know it all. I still don't know it all. I still learn things, you guys, from getting on Zooms with Cami and getting on Zooms in the top leader page. And I'm still learning stuff every single day, you will never know it all. But the quickest way to learn and to feel more confident is to put one foot in front of the other and just keep showing up. Every day that you show up, you get a little bit more confident, you learn a little bit more. It's just like learning to ride a bike. When you learn to ride a bike, you have no clue what you're doing and you're falling off the bike, and it's like just a horrible experience those first couple of days for a lot of kids. They're like bruising their knees, scraping their elbows, but what happens? In about a week or two, they can ride that bike like a pro because they kept doing it. It's the same thing with this business. I was just on my coaching session with Rachel Hollis last week before I went to New York, and she said, social media is a vehicle that can get you to where you want to go. It's a tool. She says, so not knowing how to work it is not an excuse. She says, when you first learned how to drive a car, you didn't know how to drive a car, but you went through the process of learning how. Why? Because it was a tool that could take you from where you were to where you wanted to go. So it was worth learning. It's the same thing with social media. Like, it is a tool that can take you from where you are now, take your business from where it is now to where you want it to go. So you got to learn. You got to just show up and go through the process. Okay, last question, and then we're going to hop off. But Rebecca said, I work an 8 to 5 job and sometimes struggle with messaging people daily. What would help with this, if that makes sense? So for me, like, I've built my whole business not messaging. I built it complete attraction marketing, and that's what a lot of the leadership on this team has done as well too. And whether you're messaging or whether you're doing attraction marketing, it all comes down to the same thing, like just having those standards set in place. So if you're going to message, having a number set in place that you're going to do daily, and then like figuring out when that fits into your routine. So for me with attraction marketing, I know that I have to post at least 3 to 6 times a day. I know that the minimum is absolutely 3. And so I know, like, okay, on my worst day, morning, afternoon, evening, boom, 3 posts. I know that growing my network, engaging with my network, those are things that I could do before bed. I could literally lay in bed at 2 in the morning and go ahead and grow my following, grow my network, engage with people. I can do my follow-ups at lunchtime, but like figuring out times in your day that you can fit stuff in. So maybe for you, it's getting a post in, like an inspirational post when you're walking in the door that morning. Maybe it's growing your network on your lunch break. Getting another post up on your lunch break. When you get off work, getting up one more post. Before bed every night, spending some time liking and commenting. If you are going to message, sending those messages out in the evening. Just like figuring out, like, what is my core 6 list, which you're welcome to use the one that I was just sharing with everybody. But then figuring out, okay, how can I make these things a habit? What slots of my day can I put them in? And then just fit them in. Okay. All right, I know I said last question, but there's one more that I got privately. It says, I struggle with staying positive in the business sometimes because I don't have a ton of business at all. I barely make any sales. How do I deal with this? So number one, you have to take every thought captive. If you tell yourself, I barely make any sales, you will not make any sales, and you will just constantly find yourself frustrated. You have to speak life over your business. I recommend getting just like a cheap spiral and just writing your affirmations every single day, and writing, I attract my dream business partners. I attract people who are a joy to help. I enroll customers daily. I enroll high BV customers, and believing something bigger about yourself. I can scroll back, you guys, like flip back in all these pages that I've already written of affirmations, and I can show you things that I wrote before they ever happened in my business. And I firmly believe the reason they happened is because I believed they would happen. I spoke them out. But we can't speak life over our business and death at the same time. It's one or the other. And so struggling with being positive, number one, I would say, what are you doing for self-development? How many books have you finished in the last 90 days? That's usually right there with what the issue is. Start getting your self-development on track. But then number two, realize that you cannot speak those bad things over yourself. Your mind will always believe whatever you tell it. So if you think, I'm not good at this business, I'm never going to be as good as such and such, I'm never going to be a double diamond, I'm never going to be an ambassador diamond, whatever the case is, then you won't ever be, because you can't be those things if you're telling yourself, I can't ever be those things. But the second you start speaking life, and again, the easiest way I know is affirmations, because it's kind of hard to be negative when you're writing out all these things. Like, guys, I literally write things every single day over and over and over again. I'm just going to read you guys what I write, because these are things that, like, I just feel like really help me no matter what kind of day I'm having. I start every day off with, I am redeemed for this. That's the first line every single day. If you scroll back like 100 pages in here, you'll see I am redeemed for this. It's really hard to speak negatively over yourself when you believe you were redeemed for this. So I am redeemed for this. I'm a multimillionaire. I earn well over $62,000 a month. I'm double diamond 2.0. My volume is well over 300,000. I am one of It Works' first ever double ambassadors. I lead my team to victory. I'm blessed and highly favored. I am relentless. I persist until the miracle happens. I'm a daughter of the one true King. I attract my dream business partners. I attract people who are a joy to help. I enroll high BV customers. I enroll customers daily. I know no limits. I am Brittany Hayes. So that's literally like the kind of stuff I write every day. Some days it might be a little bit different. You might see a few different ones in there, but I write that every day. And you notice, like, I write them, I am. I don't say I'm going to be. I don't say I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I say I am a multimillionaire. That is the way you retrain your brain. You retrain your brain by speaking that out. I am, I am, I am, I am. And I'm telling you, like, no matter how cheesy you may think it is, like, just get a spiral and start writing it tonight and start writing it tomorrow, and just every day keep writing those things. Because I'm telling you, like, that is when you start seeing yourself rise to the occasion, and you start seeing yourself perform in a way that you've never performed before, because you start believing it. But until we master our mind and we take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, we'll never be who we actually could be. And so I just want to leave you guys before we get off, going back to the beginning of this Zoom. Stop crying over what God is done with. Stop crying over what he took away. Maybe someone quit your team who you thought would never quit your team. Okay, stop crying over that. He's done with that. That person's not coming back, at least not for this season. Look ahead. Look ahead in great expectation at what's to come. Take quitting off the table. If you have a back door, your mind will always take it. So take quitting off the table and commit to showing up every single day a better version of yourself. People want to follow someone who knows where they're going. They don't care if you're perfect. They just care if you're real. So they don't care if you had a rough summer. They don't even know that you had a rough summer. All your network needs is to see you bring in the fire. They need to see you showing up every day, being loud and proud about where you're going, and just literally speaking that message of hope out there every single day, because that's what's going to get them to latch onto your story. That's what's going to get them to latch onto your message and to jump in and join you. But you've got to start now. You've got to start today and realize today matters, and that whatever happened in the past, who cares? We've all made mistakes. We've all dropped the ball before, whether it's with our marriage, with parenting, with our business. We all drop the ball from time to time. All we can do is start fresh today. So I love you guys. Let's commit to literally picking up the baton and running like never before, making August the best month we've ever had, and ending 2019 in a place that we're going to be proud of, and going into 2020 in a place where literally we can maximize everything that comes out on the table. Because I'm telling you guys, you're not going to want to miss what corporate has in store. We just launched the new products last night. We have more new products coming, and you're going to want to be in a place where you can continue to capitalize on it. But you can't unless you let go of what you need to let go of and you look ahead. So I love you guys so, so much. Those of you who are on the East Coast, I will be seeing you guys on Saturday. I'm absolutely so excited. Presidential Diamond Jordan Splinter and Josh Splinter and myself are doing an event in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you don't have your tickets, get your tickets. We're almost sold out. We are so excited to see all of you guys. It's going to be so amazing. We'll be doing a team lunch after the event too. So the event's from 11 to 2, and then we have a team lunch after, and we're so excited to see you guys. It's going to be huge. Bring your guests. We'll seal the deal for you. We're going to have a fit bar where they can sample everything. It's going to be so huge. So we love you guys so, so much. I can't wait to see a lot of you guys on Saturday. Have a great night. If you guys need anything, let me know, and let's rock out the rest of August. Bye, guys.